You are listening to Road to CEO, nothing but in-depth interviews with executives about their journeys as CEO. I'm your host, Will Marlow, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Have great mentors, like have people to talk to and have people that you can bounce ideas off and that could point you in the right direction that have done it before. Stay long-term focused and kind of stay above the tactical level in the business and remind yourself why you're doing it.
I'm here today with Jonathan Kantor, the founder and CEO of Uncommon Golf, which is a company that is aimed at creating a better type of golf ball. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Will, can I just say that you are one of the 10% who pronounced my last name correctly? It's not that complicated, but you nailed it. So this is a great way to start.
What kind of pronunciations do you hear? Because to me, it seems pretty clear.
I get Kantor. I just get like the variations of it. I don't know why, but like you just nailed it. So I think we're getting off to the right start here.
All right. I'm glad. I'm always glad to get a compliment. Why don't we start at the beginning? What is Uncommon Golf all about?
Yeah, really good question. So, for me, like I grew up in the outdoor industry. My first job was working at Burton Snowboards, and I worked at Oakley and a few other brands where the emotional tie to the consumer with these brands is so profound. People get tattoos of the brand logo on their arms and all this other stuff. And, about 5 or 6 years ago, I got really into golf. And I felt like all the brands kind of were positioned like auto parts. They only talked about like performance and price, and I didn't relate to them. So, Uncommon was basically our attempt to build a brand that was more relatable in golf, that stood for more, had more, I'd say like brand meaning than like just function to the user, right? So Uncommon, our whole mantra is about self-expression and playing golf your way. And we tell a lot of emotional marketing stories. Of course, from a performance standpoint and from a price standpoint, we're competitive to the rest of the market. But Uncommon is really an attempt to be very different in a homogenous, old, stodgy market.
Fascinating. So kind of like the way Harley Davidson created this cult around their motorcycles, you're building a brand with that kind of resonance.
That's exactly right. You think about Harley, classic stories of some of these Japanese manufacturers like having higher technical specs and speed and all of other stuff, but people love the Harley brand, and there's something that's so magic about that. Same thing with Apple computers, and that is the goal, to do that in golf.
Very interesting. So I want to get into kind of what differentiates the product and all that. But before that, I believe that it is a direct to consumer brand. So like you create a relationship with your customer, they order from you online, you can't find the product in stores. Is that accurate?
That's 100% accurate. I call ourselves a modern D2C brand, meaning like 90% of our business and, our connection to the consumer is digital based, but we do have some physical retail outlets. For example, Hypebeast, which is like a very influential media outlet in streetwear, is going pretty hard into golf, and they're opening up a flagship store in Soho in Manhattan. And we're one of their featured brands. So we have like these one-off retail partnerships, but we're not at scale, nor will we ever be like in a Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever else.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like why? So talk about the decision to go D2C.
Yeah, D2C, like it's interesting. First of all, D2C has been obviously very hot for the last few years. The timing has been challenging. If you think about like 5 years ago, the mattress brand of the day with just source of product in Asia and spend money on Facebook, right? And that playbook is kind of out the window. Facebook ad costs have gone up by 5x, in that time period, and the market has become more saturated. However, it is the easiest way to bootstrap a business and be deeply connected to a consumer. And for us, Uncommon has been one massive experiment, and the digital format has just given us the ability to really iterate and test and refine our product and brand kind of as we go.
Okay. Fascinating. So can you talk a little bit about what makes the Uncommon golf balls special?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, golf balls, when you think about it, the ingredients to a golf ball in terms of the urethane covers, the cores and the mantles, they're very similar compositions from brand to brand. One of the interesting things that a lot of golf ball companies do is they design their balls for tour players, right? They hit the ball like a massive distance, their swing speeds are high. And like to us, that just didn't make sense. We're never going to have a tour player play our balls. It's just not, kind of what we're interested in. And we wanted to build a ball that was, I would say, like more built for the average golfer, right? Like the 10 handicap weekend player and whatever else. So, our balls have like a little bit of a softer compression compared to a tour ball. They have like an amazing feel around the greens, and we basically just kind of engineer them with all these different materials to be more forgiving and have more control for the average player. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So, and you're talking to somebody who's been around golf a lot, but is not a golfer, and so I
Yeah.
don't. I'm glad that you're kind of spelling that out a little bit for me. So, would it be? And this is a dumb question, probably, but would they be allowed to be used at the professional
Of
level?
course. Yeah. Like our balls are all, there's basically a governing body in golf, the USGA, and you have to be conforming to them. So,
Okay.
even the way like stuff is printed on the balls, to the number of dimples, to the materials, to like how solid the core is. Like this is a ball cut in half, by the way. All these different elements need to conform to the rules of golf, and our balls do conform to that. They could be played on tour. I think it's just more of like a philosophical stance on like, you should not be playing like Will. If you play golf 5 times a year, I'm making it up. I don't know how much you play. You should not be playing the ball that Tiger Woods plays. Like it
Right.
makes no sense. However, the whole golf industry was built on this marketing pyramid that like basically says if Tiger Wood plays the ball, Will's going to want to play the ball,
Yeah.
and like, I just don't think that makes sense anymore.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that totally makes sense to me. I do a little bit of weightlifting and strength building, and everybody wants to jump right into doing what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. He had a 6 day a week routine, and this crazy split, and there are plenty of other people who people want to model themselves after. And it's like, what, look, you're, if you're a 12th grader who's, who's never lifted a weight in their life, that's not how you start. You start out with a very easy, very boring, setup that's going to get you great results. It's going to look nothing like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the beginning.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an interesting. So is that a difficult? So in weightlifting, that's a very difficult thing to explain to people. People want badly to do what their hero is doing.
Yeah.
What's it like in golf?
I think it's difficult too. I mean, like I said, this whole industry has been built on this pyramid of influence. You see the top companies that are just like, it's like a dogfight to get the number of players, the maximum number of players on tour to play their equipment. What's really interesting in golf right now is there's this like greater market, and I would say like the greater, the people who've been playing golf for 20 years, right? And then there's like this younger demographic who have like come into the sport over let's say call it the last 5 years, and they do not want to play by the rules of the older generation, right? The older generation is I don't know, at least the way I felt going to country clubs as a kid was a little bit like out of place, and at times stuffy, and like all those traditions of golf are just like, it has such a rich history, and that's incredible. But there's this new generation that is just like kind of calling bullshit on the old generation. So I would say like amongst the older audience, like they're never going to be interested in uncommon. They're going to play the Tiger ball, right? But like amongst the enlightened generation, I shouldn't say that, but like, I think people are much more open and like, yeah, that makes no sense. Why would I do that? I want to play an uncommon ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. I could definitely see that. So why don't we turn a little bit to your role at
Yeah.
Uncommon? So you founded the company.
Yeah.
What's that been like? So I assume you've kind of had to spearhead. What is your role day to day?
Yeah, I'm the founder and basically the CEO. Like there's 7 of us working at the company. And to answer what it's like. So, it's interesting. Like there's these 2 paths, and I've kind of been exposed to them both. Like if you want to run a business, one is like you kind of climb the corporate ladder, right? And that's one way to do it. The other way is that you just start a business, right? And like kind of the learning curve and all that stuff is, there's some stuff that's really applicable on both ends, and there's some stuff that's completely different. In this case, since we're starting from zero, like to answer your first question, which is how is it? It is a roller coaster. Like some days you're like, I'm a freaking genius. Like I am the man. And then like 6 minutes later, you're like, I am an idiot. Like what was I thinking here? Like it's the dumbest thing ever. Why am I spending time on this? But the cool thing about Uncommon is like it's really passion led project, right? Like I think we have a strong belief that golf can be better, like idealistically, and it could be more inclusive, and it could represent golf is like a magical sport, walking a fairway with friends on a summer sunset, and most golfers, if you're on the outside of golf, you don't have the view to that, like all these kind of magical moments. And like, we are like on a mission to like kind of spread that and like the love of the game and all that. And it's really fun. The other side of that is like, it's a lot of work, right? Like, my job is like keeping people all moving in the right direction and being focused on what we need to do as a brand. Like we are bootstrapped. We're deliberately bootstrapped. Like we've had opportunities to raise capital. We don't want to. We just want to play by our own rules. We want to grow the right way. We want to be really deliberate in our growth. The hardest thing is like galvanizing, even if it's 5 people or 7 people, and pointing everyone in the right direction and saying, this is where we're going and this is how we're getting there and this is how we're going to get there. And here's how we're benchmarking that and measuring everything. And like, and here's how it plays into the 5-year vision. So that's what I spend a lot of time doing.
Okay. Yeah. And I talked to a number of CEOs who have successfully done bootstrapped companies. And, I think it's a wonderful model. As you said, you maintain control, you maintain your ability to have a coherent vision. And, you don't have these quarterly meetings that are brutal about, with outsiders wanting to know where you are in terms of hitting your marks and how you're spending their money. I'm on board.
Yeah, it's great. Look, I think that we're also like simultaneously building like an advisory board, so we have the right people directing us and all that other stuff. And I think it's just a balance, right? Like we want to play by our own rules, but that doesn't mean we're not being aggressive, and like we're ambitious, and we want to shake some stuff up in this industry.
So what kind of targets have you set for yourself?
In terms of like milestones throughout the business, or
in terms of, so a lot of times we get a lot of people who want to become CEOs. They want to manage their companies better, and so they think about different metrics that determine success. What are some good metrics that you want, that you're keeping in mind for as you're building your company?
To really like speak to, I could talk about KPIs and metrics all day. Like the idea that we had with Uncommon, we spent 2 years building our community before we launched the brand. And the one metric that we looked at was like, we wanted, the idea with building Uncommon when we came to the market, which was only 8 months ago, was that we wanted to build 1,000 true brand fans, right? And I think companies make a really fatal mistake when they launch or when they market, or even as they grow up and they market, and they speak to too broad of an audience. They try to be all things to all people. And we kind of came to the table and said, look, we want this to be really polarizing. We want some people to hate us, but we want some people to fall in love with us. And the way we thought about our word, our idea, our brand spreading is by having these 1,000 true fans who tell their friends and tell their friends and tell their friends. And that was going to be like our main kind of word of mouth marketing strategy. So basically like a tube of balls, costs 30 or 35 bucks on our website. We have a bunch of apparel. And the way we've defined our true fans is if you spend $250 a year with us. So we kind of looked at them on a lifetime value perspective. And the first and foremost goal, it wasn't to like, spend a ton of money on Facebook or whatever else. It was to acquire these 1,000 true fans and then have a relationship with them where like our gospel spread and spread and spread. So that's first and foremost.
I love that. So 1,000 true fans, and they'd be spending, $250 a year approximately.
Exactly. That was like our benchmark. They'd order a handful of balls and some apparel and accessories and whatnot.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, if you don't mind me asking, so how did, so in terms of building your community, what did you rely on for that? Was it social media? Was it?
Yeah, honestly, it was like Instagram. And
Nice.
I think Instagram is very fertile from a golf perspective because, Instagram, golf reminds me of, like I said, I grew up in snowboarding and streetwear culture. And like, that was very big in the early 2000s when Shaun White won his first Olympic gold medal. And there was all these like cottage industries coming off that, and a lot of really small brands that were like really making waves in the market. And golf reminded me of that. In the last few years, there's a lot of very cool small brands, and there's a very cool built-in networking community of golfers on Instagram. So that's where we chose to build.
Nice, nice. So, and so has that kind of platform been working really well for you? I mean, you've been at it for about 8 months now, I think. Or no, you were building your community before the 8 month launch, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say like we've been working on it for 2.5 years, and it's been
Nice.
incredible, right? Like, if you looked at the surface of our Instagram, like let's say we have 5,300 followers right now. It's not like the metrics aren't impressive. What's impressive is our engagement. Like, as brands grow, they tend to have like a 1% engagement rate on a social media channel like Instagram,
Yeah.
and like we have like a several percentage points worth of engagement on most of our posts, and people are commenting and liking and sharing, and we know most of these people on a first name basis. Like we have built these 1,000 true fans like through this, and they share our content, and we have like a great relationship with them. So it was always smaller quantity, deeper relationships, and again, I think that's like kind of the seed for things to grow and become bigger.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I love about this is, a lot of times people will want to spread themselves out over Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and they don't really do any of those platforms well. I've
Yeah,
seen, just from my own anecdotal experience, when you go all in on one, it's tremendous,
that's
get
exactly what
tremendous
we've done.
results.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've done.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to being CEO, so you said you've got a team of about 7 people.
Yeah.
Um, how do you like how do you like being CEO? Do you feel like does it play to your strengths?
It's funny because like, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and I've climbed the corporate side too. So we could talk about that if you want. And like, I've always wanted to run businesses, and like the CEO thing from the outside is like sexy, right? On the inside, it's thankless, and it's a ton of work. And, and there's like parts of the job that, just quite frankly, like suck. Like, inevitably you disappoint people, or people want more than what you could give them, or whatever else. And it's like, it's hard managing that stuff. So I would say that like overall, I feel like I'm weird to say this out loud, but I feel like I'm meant to do the work. Like I really like working with teams and inspiring people and growing people, and like seeing people blossom and thinking strategically about the business, and like I like touching. I always feel like I was a pretty bad specialist in my career, but a great generalist. I was always interested. My first job was in sales, and I was always interested in the finance side of the business. And then, I was in biz dev, and I was interested in the marketing side of the business. And like, I've just
Yeah.
always been curious about all this stuff. So, the upside is that you get to touch it all, and it's really, really interesting. And the downside is that like, just, it's like endless, like everyone wants more from you. And like at night you go to sleep thinking about like, for example, like there's a handful of our team who have contributed to the business on a cash perspective, right? Like
Mm.
they've invested, right? And like, I'm basically the steward for their money, and there's some responsibility that comes along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, uh, would you say that well, how have you were you influenced by the family background? You said you've come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Incredibly influenced. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and they moved to the U.S. And like, my grandfather like was working in the garment district of New York selling fabrics.
Wow.
My dad was a land developer and entrepreneur, and from a young age, I think, when I think about like, I have a kid on the way, so I'm really thinking about like, what does it mean to be a parent, or what are you trying to unlock in your kid? And whether it be academics or sports or whatever the interest might be, I think like your job is to find that like interest, whatever they're inherently into or curious about, and like nurture it.
Hmm.
And for me, like at age 10 or whatever, like business was interesting to me. Like I was fascinated with my dad's story and his company, and going to work there and like sweep houses when I was young and all of this stuff. And I was just really, really interested in it. So it's like the single biggest impact I think on my life and my career.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. So, so you've talked about Instagram and how that's kind of the marketing platform that you've selected. What other
Yeah.
kind of technologies are you using as you're managing your team or building the company? Anything in particular kind of stand out that you're really
Yeah.
kind of
I mean,
leaning
like,
on?
That's the thing. Like in 2022, like we are literally the luckiest people ever to be alive right now and have access to the tools we do. Shopify, like absolute game changing platform. Like websites that would cost $200,000 5 years ago, like now cost $2,000, right? Like so we're heavily reliant on Shopify, all the plugins and apps that go along with that, from like review tools to analytics to like you name that. Um, to like all the communication tools, like we live on Slack and Google Drive and all that other stuff. So nothing, like we haven't developed anything specific to us, but like those tools, we wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
do Uncommon without all that stuff.
Is your team distributed, or is it
Yeah,
all in one
yeah,
place?
yeah.
That,
Distributed East Coast, West Coast, and a handful of us in Utah.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've focused on building a distributed business as well, and it was before COVID that I made that decision. And and obviously after COVID, everybody went distributed, and
Yeah,
so it wasn't a complete shock for us. I mean, because we've always done that, and I just think it's really, it's the way that you can have the best talent, the best people, involved, as long as you've built a good company that they want to be involved with.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree
Um,
more.
so yeah, have there been any challenges with the virtual nature of building the company, or since you did it from the ground up, has it
Yeah,
just
I mean,
been
like,
pretty smooth?
look, we've mostly done this during COVID, right? Like, so I think
Yeah.
the challenge is that, like, we've gotten everyone together. Like, it's been over 2 years, one time, everyone together, and that's challenging, right? Like, even from a cultural perspective, and going out and having a coffee or like catching up. 90% of our meetings are like, they are business meetings, right? Like we're looking at the metrics of the business, we're looking at strategy, we're looking at performance, and it's not like spending time together and building
Yeah.
teams. That's definitely a challenge. But I think COVID's going away now, and that's gonna be a lot easier going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let me ask you this. So you have not taken on any institutional money. You
Yeah.
have gotten some investment, it sounds like, from individuals.
Yeah.
You've got your 1,000 user, kind of, target,
Yeah.
and in terms of, so some brands like yours want to bootstrap to a certain
Yeah.
level and then take on venture capital, or
Yeah.
who knows what kind of growth capital. And then others, I was talking to the CEO of Beard Brand not too long ago, and he's never going to do that. He
Yeah.
wants to grow, and he's made a great company out of that was bootstrapped essentially, and now it's a wonderful brand. There's a lot of loyalty to it. Which path do you think you'd want to go? Do you want to keep it independent like that, kind of the way Beard Brand has so far, or do you feel like you would want to take on institutional money at a certain
There's
point?
no question that it'll be independent, right? Like, we're a consumer-based business, so obviously, like, as we grow, the great thing is it's really exciting to see growth. The downside is you have to finance it, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, I think for the first 5 or 6 years of the company's life, we're always going to have to be thinking creatively about how we finance inventory, and our growth. And like, the cool thing about today's world is, like, again, 5 years ago, it was like, do you raise money or do you not? And now there's like a lot of gray areas. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
these really cool platforms where you could like work on a debt basis and finance your inventory through, for like a pretty compelling interest rate and stuff like that. So, Uncommon, while the project is ambitious, I've been in those situations where we raised a lot of money, not for Uncommon, for other businesses, and it's a different level of pressure and obligations and expectations. And Uncommon is this, like, in my mind, this might sound a little too out there and poetic, but like, it's like this beautiful thing that's like growing, and like, I want to take risk with the business. I want to weaponize language. I want to take a very strong position in the market. I just want to be polarizing going forward. And like, raising money really, really complicates that. So
Yeah.
I would say a foreseeable future is bootstrapping and growing responsibly. We don't need to grow right now, right? Like, it's obviously, we're ambitious and we want this to be a business that matters from a financial perspective. I mean, it has to matter from a financial perspective to keep going on it. But outside our own expectations, there's nothing else we need to do here, and there's magic in that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the model is subscription, if I'm not mistaken. Is it,
We have a subscription component, but obviously golf is seasonal, so that's really hard to
yeah.
maintain. So there's just an option on our website for subscription, but it is still one-off purchases. So Yeah, the model is starting with 1,000 fans and then going to 2,000 and 5,000, and having this relationship with our customer that we nurture over time, and
Yeah.
building our base basically.
And I think, in terms of, so again, since I'm not a golfer, it's hard for me to understand this, but how many golf balls do people need to buy in a year? Like if they're if they're kind of a casual golfer, or
Yeah,
as you described it, like a 10 par, what was it?
yeah, a 10 handicap. Like a 10 handicap is actually a really good golfer. So we'll call it a 20 handicap. Like
Yeah.
that person probably plays 7 or 8 rounds a year. They might lose 6 balls. So like call it like 6 dozen packs of balls, give or
Okay.
take. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and you've talked about the better experience that somebody has when they're using your
Yeah.
golf balls. Is that kind of what you think forms the bond and makes somebody into like a raving fan?
Yeah,
That is like the experience
everything.
when they're using it.
Yeah, like if you think about like our brand is built to be different, right? That's why we're called uncommon, right? So that we have like 1,000 touch points, literally, like throughout the brand experience, where like each one adds up, and it's designed to make our customer think, huh, like this is different than everything else out there. And I think really it's the cumulative effect of that. It's not one single touch point. I'll give you an example. I'll show you our packaging over here. I should have been prepared for this and had it right here, but like our packaging comes in these like really cool
I see that.
so these really cool corrugate tubes, and inside the tube our balls are in this basically like silk microfiber bag. So you take this bag out and you could put it in your golf bag, or you could put computer chargers in it in your backpack, and you reuse it over
Nice.
time. And like this is a perfect example of thinking different, where we were like, we looked at the golf market, the golf ball market, and we said, why do all balls come in a square box with more boxes inside them? Like, number one, it doesn't look cool. Number two, it's not environmentally friendly. And like number three, there's like limited design space to tell stories around and all that other stuff. And like, so that's example of like, and for us, like we're never going to be on the shelves of Dick's Sporting Goods, right? So we don't need to be in a box. That's the answer, right? All golf balls are in a box because they need to fit on a Dick's Sporting Goods shelf, right? So like we just had more design liberty to do something different. So this is an example of like the one of 1,000, touch points that like are built to inspire and engage our consumer.
I see. That's really cool. Can you hold that up one more time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So this does remind me of kind of the Apple experience. You're going to get something. It's kind of, you've never seen this kind of packaging before for that product, and
Exactly right.
kind of creates a better feeling as you're opening it.
Exactly.
I don't know what the other 1,000 touch points are, but I just heard of another one from Apple, which I'd not heard of before, but they have made it so there's a one-time smell that you smell when you open an Apple product, which disappears. Your product doesn't have the smell on an ongoing basis, but that's part of the unboxing experience. Is there's apparently just this aroma
I
that
didn't
is.
know that, but like I think it makes complete sense.
It does. Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know, I like the idea of the 1,000 touch points. And so when you say 1,000, do you literally mean it's 1,000, or are you just saying there's a
Oh
lot?
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like, things to like, our balls are designed differently than anything else in the market. If you look at our numbers,
Oh
each
yeah.
golf ball is numbered. Sorry, there's a little bit of reflection there, but like our numbers are basically like in a dice format,
Okay.
because like, gambling is part of golf, right? Like you're gambling
Oh
with
yeah.
friends. So like, our numbers are dice formats. So like packaging, to the way we tell our story, to the way we interact with our customers. Like we have a text message, an SMS platform, like on our website. Like that's how we do all our customer service, all our interaction. Yeah, like there's just literally 1,000 touch points.
Wow. How hard was it to get approved by the USGA?
It wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard. If you look at the USGA, like a conforming list, like every month there's like, actually, I don't know if it's every month or every quarter they do submissions, but like there's literally like hundreds of products that get approved, and their guidelines are very, very clear. So
Okay.
the hardest thing was like just doing the work on all the guidelines and like reading it with a fine tooth comb and like making sure that every single box was checked. And once we were able to do that, it was really easy to get approved.
Interesting. So, so the one part that that I'm curious about here is, so pretty much every other brand, it sounds like, wants a celebrity endorsement. They want, right? Like they want a golfer using it. You know, you're going the opposite direction, it sounds like. Um, you know, is that, what does that mean though exactly? Like what is that, like what, so does it mean that you're going to be purely word of mouth based on existing users, and you're going to count on the existing users to have an amazing experience, and so then that it'll snowball? Or is there any other, is there something else to it?
You know, to be clear, like we're going to have endorsements. We're just not going to do them in the way that every other golf ball brand does
Okay.
it. Like, we're not going to have pro tour players playing our products, right? But we're going to have other people who are influential in golf or the community or whatever else that might be playing our balls and might be, you know, some kind of a, we might have some kind of relationship with them, whether like it's on a paid basis or whatever else. So I do believe in the endorsement model. I just don't believe in it the way like every other golf ball brand
I
does it.
see.
Yeah.
I What about the education component, where, you know, you've got people coming into golf all the time, and, you know, they don't know how to golf. And it sounds like some of those folks are your audience. I mean, you
Yeah.
want folks who are, I would assume, who are, you know, newer golfers sometimes. You know, you know, do you want, are you putting out any educational material, that sort of thing, to help people with their swing, to help people kind of get, you know, an understanding of golf? Is that part of the strategy at all?
Good question. It's not right now. It's not right now because you know, like the teaching pros, like a PGA teaching pro, they do incredible,
Yeah.
incredible work. Especially even on all the social media platforms. Like, there's a lot of great content out there. One thing that we do spend a lot of time talking about is like how do we educate people on playing the right golf ball or using the right equipment and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I think that's something you'll see more from us. But in terms of like the actual golf swing, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because you mentioned how 5 years ago the advertising strategy would have been different. You know, I think it's true that the educational strategy would also have been different. You know, 5 years ago, you could start an educational channel on YouTube, for instance, and grow it more easily. I mean, I think you could do it today, but it is so crowded and
It's so
so,
good. Couldn't agree
yeah.
more.
Yeah. So no, I think you know, it's interesting because, you know, as you said, we're some of the luckiest people to be alive today. I mean, especially as business owners who, you
Yeah.
know, there's so many ways to grow business, but there's still challenges because there's so many, you know, like there are techniques that would work, you know, 2 years ago, and 2 years later, those techniques are, you know, debatable,
There is no
questionable at best.
question. There's no question. It's amazing because we have like the technology and the resources
Yeah.
and the access to people. But yeah, you still there's the fundamental reason that your product or brand exists, like still needs to be strong, right? Like, and the way you communicate with your community and you still have to do a lot. And also like to your point, being native on certain channels, right? Like it's hard to stand out.
Yeah. So, you know, we talked about metrics a little bit ago. Um, do you, and you mentioned people getting tattoos of brands. Like, is that like a benchmark you're still waiting for? You want you to see your first customer with a tattoo on their arm?
You know, I don't know about that. I think I feel a little guilty, right? Because like, you know, I don't know. I don't know how I would feel, to be honest with you. So I would say that's not a metric, but I think little things like,
Yeah.
you know, I was in Whole Foods like a few months ago, and like I was wearing an Uncommon hat, and someone stopped me. I was like, "Oh, that's that new golf thing." Are you like?" And it just asked me about it, not thinking that I was like involved or whatever, but was just like, you know. And I was like, "Those are like really proud moments, right?" Because like
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, you spend so much time building in a vacuum and like thinking about the stories you tell and how it's going to resonate with people. And every time that you see someone wearing a hat or playing a ball in the wild, there's a little bit of like a good warm fuzzy feeling. You're like, okay, cool, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if we're at the tattoo phase yet, but like just seeing the product out there makes me happy.
Yeah. I know what you mean. That it is. That's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
Um, so I always like to ask, has there been any moment in the past, since you started the company, since you started Uncommon, has there been any moment where you wanted to quit, throw it in, you know, just throw in the towel, you know, even for a short period of time?
Um, it's a good question. I would say no. The quick answer is no.
That's great.
Um, but there's moments when like it's been like hit me over the head on how hard it is going to be. Like, for example, this year, because like the state of the global supply chain
Yeah.
and logistics infrastructure, like we had to place all our inventory orders like in October, and we still haven't gotten the product, and we had to do it all up front. Like normally we have like 30-day production and 30-day shipping cycle. So
Mm.
reasonably, like we could place product orders for golf balls like every 90 days and just have a steady state of inventory flow. This year we had to do it all up front. So there's like a level of risk that just comes in, especially as like we launched the product in August last year, so the tail end of the golf season.
Yeah.
And there's a level of like risk and unpredictability where like, it definitely caused me to pause and go, okay, like, does this still make sense to do?
Yeah.
And after like thinking about, the answer was yes, but like, that one definitely caused me to pause and think a little more.
Yeah. Have you had any other supply chain issues?
Um, Knock on wood, I wouldn't say like we have had other supply chain issues. There's just been like a strong sense of urgency to get product in production and get it here for spring, which luckily we've achieved. And there's like every other week, there's like, so one of the main ingredients in our cores is called sirloin. And it's like a, certain type of rubber compound. And, like there's 1 week it's a sirloin shortage. The next week there's coronavirus in Hong Kong is shutting down. And the next week it's so, it's just, I think it's just like that's like how the world is right now. And we just have to live in this world of uncertainty. And like my messages to the team is like, it's going to be hard. It's gonna be another hard year, and like it's just gonna make us better. And like when these things don't exist or exist at a smaller level, it's just gonna be that much easier to operate the business. But like from a cost perspective, like to ship a container of goods from China to the US right now, 2 years ago was $1,500. Now it's 15 grand.
Wow.
Right? Like, so there are like a lot of really challenging elements of the business to making anything overseas and selling it globally.
Yeah, that's a huge uptick.
Just shipping.
Wow. I see. So obviously that's going to affect your costs and everything.
100%.
Yeah.
And then, we had this question of like, do we pass the cost increase along to the consumer, right? And we ultimately landed at no, that like we would just eat the margin right now, because like we want to get our product out to people, and we want to tell the brand story and get the brand message out there, and like remove all obstacles to that. And like longer term, we're going to spend more time thinking about our margins and how we get healthier there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with your strategy of having word of mouth and all of that. I mean, I think, that hopefully will come back around and help you guys out. What about shipping delays? Has that been if like getting your product to customers, has that been easy, or is that has that been an issue?
Luckily, it hasn't been an issue. We have like a very good logistics partner that's based in Salt Lake. They're called Agile, and they've just been like excellent on every level. And yeah, like knock on wood, like really no delays to the consumer. The only challenge has been that like there's a few colors that we've been out of stock on, and obviously we can't fulfill that. So,
and is that a supply chain type issue?
Supply chain thing, yeah. I mean, we're going to be back in stock in 10 days.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I guess at this point, people would never even consider that as being an issue with not having colors in stock and all that. But I mean now I think consumers are they're starting to understand what's happening.
I agree. There's some awareness from the consumer side, and there's a little bit of forgiveness, but people still want Amazon has basically like convinced everyone that they could have anything they want in like 2 hours, right? So. Do
you sell? Sorry, go
on. So anyway, so everyone wants everything overnight.
Yeah. And that reminds me, do you sell through Amazon at all?
We have. We've dabbled, like just as like kind of an experiment. TBD on whether we continue with that. Like, there was demand and we actually sold through the product we sent them, but I think for right now, we might want to just control the whole experience and be 100% off our website.
So just for the folks listening, for their benefit, when you sell through Amazon, you're giving them a cut, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So what kind of cut is that you're generally speaking giving up when you've got?
Yeah, there's basically like two fees. There's like a referral fee that like is to sell on their platform, and that's about 15% of the retail price.
Yeah.
And then there's the fulfillment fee, and that could be like 5 to 10% of the retail price. So you're talking about like 20 to 25%.
Yeah.
The problem is that like on our website, right, like we have basically a feature where if you spend $60 or more, you get free shipping.
Yeah.
But like a consumer can buy a single tube of balls from Amazon and they get free shipping. So we're not getting the higher AOVs, we're not getting the higher checkouts, but we're still paying for free shipping, and
Yeah.
that hurts a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think but I will say that you know, going the route that you're going, where you're creating brand loyalty, a deep connection to your consumers, I think that gives you the ability to bypass Amazon. Pretty much nobody who doesn't do that can bypass Amazon, in my opinion.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise, because you just there's the economy of scale over there. They're always going to win
Oh,
on
yeah,
price.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, so you've tested out Amazon, but for now you're gonna stick it.
Yeah, we've tested it. Like originally, like we wanted to be a little bit heavier on Amazon. I think again, it's a great way to reach people. I think we will be on there. I don't know if it makes the most sense in the near term.
Yeah. Um, so if you were going to give advice to somebody who's starting a business or who's going to take the helm of a company as CEO, you know, what's something you might what's some advice you might give them?
Have great mentors, like have people to talk to, and have people that you can bounce ideas off, and that could point you in the right direction that have done it before. Stay long-term focused. I mean, like these are things you're going to hear everywhere, but like stay long-term focused, and you know, kind of stay above the tactical level in the business and remind yourself why you're doing it. I think like long term, if you're in the right space and you have the right strategy and you have the right product and you have the right brand, like it's just a time equation. It's a time and effort. I think one of the things that like I'm convinced more of now than ever is that starting and running businesses, I always thought was like an intellectual pursuit and like the smartest people won. I don't
Mm.
believe that anymore. I think it's like the people that are willing to run through the wall and get the bloodiest win. And like, I think there's a lot of people that are just succeeding through sheer grit and determination. And I think that's the X factor. So like, think about that on your journey, however you prepare yourself for that, or like look in the mirror and say, am I the guy to run through walls? Like, you know, over and over and over and over again, like be really, really real and ready for that.
Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Road to CEO. It's been a great episode, and I'm looking forward to following your business as it grows.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. You could check us out on Instagram or our website, uncommon.golf. Let me know what you think of the balls, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, we'll put up all the details on how you can buy balls, how you can get in touch, you know, with the company, and you know, I hope everybody goes out there and gets their golf balls from Uncommon.
Thanks so much. That's awesome.